spoilers? Oh, lots and lots of spoilers. Right, well, welcome to Max Mike Movies. That is, of course, if you didn't, tune in. I mean, I'm sure that if you're listening, because you are listening, that you more or less rather wanted to be here, as it were. Sorry, if it's not the show you're looking for, but, well, I'm sure we can rather entertain, should you wish to, as they say, hang about. This week there'll be a lot of apologizing because we're on the second film of our current series, Isn't It Romantic? The Hugh Grant, Julia Roberts movie, Notting Hill, which we hope is all right, isn't going to offend anyone. Max and I have actually been to Britain, which is, rather good, as it can lend a kind of understanding to the whole proceeding. A bit of sincerity and all that, if you don't mind. And if you don't mind, I'd like to introduce the first host. Well, he hasn't done any talking as of yet, but when he does, he certainly, will be first, or rather second. I like to think of him as Flopsy Max Levine. And I'm just in the corner murmuring, and therefore you can think of me as Mumbling Mike Luce. Right, enough granting about. We've got a show to do.
God, get on with it! Good Lord.
Yeah,
if anyone out there is still awake.
Right, sorry if that went on too long. Oh, geez, I didn't...
Stop it!
Yes, Pinky, this week we are doing Notting Hill.
You didn't really stammer enough.
Well, I'll try harder, to just...
Yes, this is the movie with Hugh Grant at a very, very high level of Hugh Grantiness.
Yeah, he might even be at the apex of Grant.
Yeah, this might be peak Grant at that point.
And yet at no point in this movie does anybody walk up to him and go, "Oh, Mr. Grant!"
Which is a darn shame.
It is a darn shame. We watched Notting Hill this week. And as you might suspect, or even if you don't, there's trivia.
Ooh, tell us, do.
The show. Budget. That's a French term meaning budget. I don't know why, because there's no French people in this film. $42 million.
Okay, which 40 of which I assume went to pay Julia Roberts.
You will find that actually will be part of the trivia. We will find out.
Okay.
I think it's the next bit. The take a guess. Was this successful, Max? Do you think this was successful?
I'd say this was probably pretty successful. I would think it was pretty high.
So take a guess. If it was $42 million to make and it's successful, how much did it make?
$150 million.
Not even close.
$250 million.
You can see the sun from there.
$500 million?
$364 million.
Wow.
Which is a lot of love.
I'm surprised there wasn't a Notting Hill 2, Spike's Revenge or something.
I honestly don't think they could have afforded to make it.
No, probably not. 1999, when this came out, that was kind of when a whole bunch of those people really broke.
Yeah. And remember, this is a rom-com, $42 million. So, Anna Scott, which is Julia Roberts' part in this film, has a moment when a group of regular people ask her, or in this case, one of William's friends asks her, what she made on her last movie. Her answer in the film is $15 million. Which just so happened to be what she made on this movie.
Oh, wow. So she got almost more than a third of the budget.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
I'm betting Hugh Grant did not.
Probably not,
he was very popular, but
yeah,
he I don't know how much of a... Was he as much of a box office darling?
I don't think so, but I didn't see that. That wasn't part of the trivia.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it wasn't that interesting. Like a lot of Hugh Grant. Anyway, the scene where Anna Scott puts down the group of men speaking loudly about her in the restaurant was ad-libbed by Roberts, then added to the script. It was not part. Yeah, they were originally just supposed to walk off. That amazing scene of the Four Seasons that was shot when he's going down the... I can't remember the name of the road, and it's a very, very famous road.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Through the marketplace, yeah.
It was shot over 4 different days. It was actually Hugh Grant that was CG'd seamlessly into place.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. Strangely, Anna Scott, again, Julia Roberts' character, never actually calls Hugh Grant's character William by name.
Oh, okay. Now that you say it, I think that's right.
Yeah.
And she calls him Flopsy a couple of times.
Yeah, that's it. So, the original length of this movie was a whopping 3.5 hours.
What? Good God.
3.5 hours.
I mean, this movie's 2 hours and 4 minutes, which is kind of long for a romantic comedy. But
yes, it
3
is.
hours? Yikes.
3.5 hours.
3.5 hours? What else? What did they take out?
I don't know. The original blue door on William's home is a real door on a real residence, and it was auctioned off after the movie and now exists on somebody else's house.
Huh. Okay. Of course, there's nothing stopping you from painting your door blue and saying, this is the door from Notting Hill.
Yeah, but there you go.
Yeah.
Anna Scott, again, Julia Roberts' character, was meant to be a combination of Grace Kelly and Audrey Hepburn, which I can totally see. Alec Baldwin goes uncredited as Jeff, Anna Scott's on-again, off-again boyfriend.
That's right. I wonder how much he got paid for that.
When you go uncredited, usually it sounds like scale, but I don't know. Other cast members that had who would be interesting later on. So Hugh Bonneville, he plays William's friend Bernie, is better known as the Lord of the Manor in Downton Abbey.
Lord Grantham, by Jove.
Grantham. Tim McInerney, who plays Max, a perfectly wonderful name, is likely better known for his two roles in Blackadder.
Yep.
He played Lord Percy, and I forget the name of the captain he played.
Captain Darling.
Ah, thank you. Utterly unrecognizable. I didn't know it was him. Racy Vance, which is exactly how it says it's pronounced on Wikipedia. He plays Spike. It'll probably amaze listeners to know that he also played Xenophilius Lovegood in the Harry Potter movies.
He's done a ton of stuff. This is one of the few movies where he really lets his Welsh accent fly.
And he is Welsh. So,
yeah.
So, amazingly dull as far as trivia goes. The rest tends to be the usual so-and-so was almost considered for a role, the location was expected to be a horror show but wasn't, and Bumpy the Wonder Pony scenes were left on the cutting room floor.
Where Bumpy himself belongs.
Enough of that. Do you know any other trivia about this?
Ooh, not really, although I do like the fact that when we see that great sequence of poor William being set up by his friends with various girls. Did you recognize the perfect girl? Which is, by the way, how she is listed in the credits. She doesn't get a name. She is Perfect Girl.
I did not.
Now, that was Emily Mortimer.
Ah.
Yes, well, we've seen as Jane Banks in Mary Poppins Returns. And we dealt with in one of our previous movies, Cars 2. She was the voice of Holly Shiftwell.
Ah.
She's also the voice of young Sophie from Howl's Moving Castle. She's done a ton of stuff. She was pretty much almost an unknown at that point, but she's got a heck of a resume.
She's done a ton of stuff, including this.
Yes.
Right. No.
Well, actually, let's start, because this is actually part of the opening I want to talk about.
On to the plot. William Thacker, owner of a sad little travel bookshop in the heart of the Notting Hill district of London, finds his day and life suddenly turned around when who should just happen to walk into his store but Anna Scott, played by Julia Roberts, one of the world's best-known actresses. A lovely little happenstance that can't lead to anything except that later that very morning, William bumps into her, literally, again. Spilling orange juice all over her, he gallantly invites her back to his place to freshen up. William's a simple bloke, unlucky in love and life in general, except for being played by Hugh Grant. Still, Anna seems to take a liking to William if, for no other reason, he represents something she never seems to have, which is a taste of what a real everyday life must be like. Acting on instinct, William asks if she happens to be free. Sadly, she's not, until suddenly she is. Bad luck, William forgot that he has to go to his sister's birthday party that night. If that's all right with William, Anna will be his date, so they go together to meet William's friends and sister, Hollywood mixing with the middle classes in the heart of London. Things go well until Anna's true, real-life boyfriend from Hollywood suddenly shows up, throwing cold water onto William's metaphorical pants. Bad luck, William. Until Anna has a little bad luck of her own. Fleeing the press, she goes to the one place she doesn't think she'll be looked for, that little house in Notting Hill. William, thrilled to have the impossible back in his life, takes her in and finally seems to let his guard as well as his non-metaphorical pants down. All seems, well, it's true. All seems well and happy until Spike, William's roommate, just happens to mention down to the pub that Anna Scott is staying at their place. Next morning brings with it a giant flock of reporters and more scandal to Anna's already complicated life. She tops off in anger, blaming William for her troubles. William, his heart broken again, swears off women, joins the He-Man Woman Haters Club, and tries to find his way through life without the princess of the films.
Wait, what?
Well, it's true. Will these two ever get together? Can such stories really have a happy ending? What the hell do you think a rom-com is anyway, the end? More or less.
You did not, however, mention what's up with Zangief's ass.
I'll have to scratch up my notes.
Yep.
The lowdown. So,
yeah,
there's a part you wanted to mention.
Yeah, the opening song. That great pastiche where we see like Anna Scott's posters and we hear Elvis Costello singing She.
Yeah.
This also has a connection back to one of our earlier films.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. The Truth About Charlie. Remember that?
Oh,
that embarrassing remake of Charade?
Yes.
The song She was sung by Elvis Costello. It was written by Charles Aznavour, who makes a memorable appearance in The Truth About Charlie.
Yeah, interestingly, I didn't put this in the trivia because it just seemed to be like, meh. They originally had his version, but it didn't play well with the audience or the test groups. So they were like, French guy, Elvis Costello. And
we need an Englishman.
Right. Elvis Costello, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get to that at the end. I'll get to this now. Max, had you seen this when it came out?
When it came out, I honestly don't remember. I don't know if I ever saw it in the theater. I might have just seen it on an ancient technology called VHS.
Would you explain this VHS? No,
yes.
No, please don't.
It stands for Vehicular Homicide Study. And
yeah. I didn't either. I actually would not have gone to see this film because I was not a huge Hugh Grant fan. Although I did see... Let me think. I think I saw 4 Weddings and a Funeral in the theater, but I went with some friends who wanted to see it. Most of whom were of the more rom-com leaning, I guess you could put it. I remember liking it, but I don't remember the plot much. Interestingly, Hugh Grant originally was worried about doing this film because he thought the plots were too similar. Although I don't remember any funerals in this film.
I don't think so.
There's only one wedding, and it happens at the end.
Ooh, spoiler.
Oops! Yeah, but I didn't say who.
Wow, a rom-com that ends with a wedding? Jeez. Yeah,
it's an interesting contrast between this last week's and this week's, isn't it?
Kind of, in that, it's pretty much explicit that we not only see these two in bed together, but that they actually do the nasty.
Well, it's implied. I mean, he does later on playfully go and take a look at her, hoo-has.
Yeah.
Which I think, quite honestly, that moment... So there's a scene later on when they get together. It's like maybe halfway through, because it is a long film.
Yeah.
I would say that I think the pacing's actually pretty good, especially for a 2-hour rom-com. I was never bored. Mm-hmm. But William, played by Hugh Grant, and honestly, if you haven't seen the film, just picture Hugh Grant in anything.
Yeah, he was playing Hugh Grant. Although I do have to say, I saw a movie, one of the last movies I saw in theaters in this hell year, called The
yeah.
What?
Go ahead.
The Gentleman.
Oh.
And Hugh Grant plays, in effect, a bad guy in it. He plays this really sleazy tabloid journalist, and he is great. He's like the best thing in the movie. He's hilarious and loathsome, and he is just having such a good time. You can tell.
If only we'd had more of that in this film.
Yeah, this was back, before his, I believe this movie was before the incident with Miss Brown.
Oh, I thought you were going to say before they dropped. Yeah, Miss Brown. Yeah. Okay, so to me, either this film or Hugh Grant's mugshots are the most Hugh Grant thing ever, because I have never seen a mugshot of anybody else who looked horribly embarrassed before.
He did. It's one of the most English mugshots you could have. It's like, oh, I'm so terribly sorry. You know?
And he looks it.
Yes.
And he should be, quite honestly.
Yeah. But it's to me, it was interesting having Julia Roberts in this, playing this huge superstar, because her big breakout role was like 8 years earlier in '91 in Pretty Woman. That's the one that really, between those two movies, she didn't have a lot of huge hits. I mean, The Pelican Brief and...
she must have done okay if she got $50 million for this film.
She was, because also, I think it's the next year, she won the Academy Award for Erin Brockovich.
There you go. So, cripes. 42 million is the budget, and 15 goes to Julia. Okay. The film starts off interestingly, and it's a lot of the point of this film, besides the whole will they or won't they, which, come on, I will say this: there is never a moment that we're like, they're not going to get together. And that's not a bad thing, because it's still played very well, but I don't honestly believe for a second that something good isn't going to happen. It's just, the film just has that feeling about it. But the other thing, one of the major points of this film is how fame is a weird thing. And I honestly think that one of the reasons that she likes William, I think she also probably feels a little sorry for him. It's like, wow, this guy needs somebody. He just needs someone.
There's that. There's also the fact that, this guy is frigging beautiful. Look, this is not my area of expertise, but Hugh Grant is a stunningly good-looking man. And the thing in this movie especially is he acts like he has no idea of that.
Right. And it's important because, well, I think if he ever did, he would just constantly apologize for it, because that's what he spends his time doing. Although he has his moments. So, like, early in the film, when she walks into his bookstore, his travel bookstore, they only sell books on traveling, which guarantees that he'll never make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because whatever.
Oh, God, that sequence with the patron who comes in and just doesn't seem to get it, keeps asking for novels. Yeah. I had such flashbacks to working in a bookstore.
And we're going to get to that in a minute. Just but first, so he deals with a shoplifter, and it's Rufus. See a little bit Rufus. We see Rufus acting. He's stealing a travel book. Like, really, I don't know who's more pathetic, William for having this bookstore or you for robbing it. It's like, what are you going to do with this? Like, 10-pound travel guide to wherever it was. And he goes, he's like, right. Sorry, bad luck. And the guy's like, what? He's like, security camera. He's like, so? Well, I saw you put that book, down your trousers. It's just like, really? That's as forceful as he gets.
I don't know. I have to say, I saw that scene a little differently. It's I think that was one of the things that why Anna sort of found him appealing. Not because he was pitiful, but because he's very matter of fact. And he is in no way afraid of this guy. He's confronting a thief, and he's just like, yeah, bad luck. There's a security camera. Now, you can either wipe it off, take it out of your trousers, wipe it off, and put it back on the shelves, or you can buy it, or I can call the police and let them check your trousers. And Rufus backs down. He starts to try to bluster his way out of it. But I think in that moment, you realize William is not a complete pushover. Because he doesn't back down.
The reason I was bringing it up is because I thought that was one of the few moments where William shows he actually does have a backbone.
Yeah, true.
It's just he doesn't use it very often.
Yeah.
I mean, look at his flatmate. We get to Spike, who is a wonderful character.
Oh, he's so much fun, but how has he not thrown him out?
Because that's not one of the times he has a backbone.
Yeah, I guess, because obviously, it's a nice apartment. It's kind of strange, narrow, and tall. It's like, 3 floors? And in a very nice location. I'm sure he could have rented it out to anyone else. All I can figure is either he's gouging Spike hideously on the rent, or because we never hear anything that Spike doesn't pay the rent on time. It's just Spike is a pig.
Yes, he is a he is absolutely hilarious, and a huge kudos to Rhys Ifans for playing that character the way he did, being willing to stand about more or less in his underwear.
What do you mean more or less? He's wearing just his briefs in several scenes.
Yeah, but they're not even
else.
all the way on.
Yeah. And
that's like one cheek is slipped out.
The thing about Spike that keeps him from being a detestable character is there isn't a nasty bone in his body. He is like a big child. He's really very sweet in a lot of ways. There's nothing about, you get the feeling he'd never lie because, William asks him, Spike, did you tell anyone that Anna was here? And it would have been the easiest thing for him to say no, but he can't. He says, I may have mentioned it to one or two people down the pub. Yeah. Doesn't even occur to him to lie.
No. And as it turns out, he ends up being, honestly, the perfect match for William's younger sister, Honey.
That sequence, we're jumping ahead in the plot a bit, but I think that's so adorable when they're all sitting around the failed restaurant and talking about what's happening in their lives. And she says, she's sitting next to Spike, who's just sitting there with his big sort of, I have no idea look. He reminds me a little of Doug, the dog from
Squirrel?
Yeah, Squirrel? Like, I have only just met you, but I love you. And he's saying, I've decided to get engaged this year. He's a up and coming artist with brilliant prospects.
No.
And they all sit, and he just sort of look, and when they're all going, that's nice, he sort of leans over, looks over.
Well, you missed one part. It's very important.
Yeah.
I think he's going to make me happy for the rest of my life.
Oh.
Which is really just very sweet.
And then she sort of sideways leans over to Spike and goes, by the way, it's you. and
he looks at her like, what?
And he's like, well, all right then. His reaction is so adorable. The two of them are so adorable together. Because
they are.
We know from her, she tells that has this habit of picking really awful men.
Well, and skipping ahead, this is actually probably my favorite montage. I'm not a big fan of montages because you can feel them coming. They feel like... Sometimes I feel like cheating. This particular montage, which gets mentioned in the trivia, the whole thing, is literally it's William walking down Portobello Road. That's what I was trying to remember. It's a very, very famous road. He is walking down Portobello Road through 3 seasons. And it's him, and it's like it's one shot. And it starts off in the fall. It's suddenly the winter, and it's still William. And it's this wonder. It's Ain't No Sunshine is playing.
Yes, Bill Withers' great, just heartbreaking song, Ain't No Sunshine When She's Gone. It's perfect. The soundtrack in this movie is amazing.
And in the beginning of the montage, we see Honey with her current boyfriend.
That's his sister's name, apparently.
Yeah, Honey. At the end of the montage, we see them breaking up because he's obviously been horrible to her. He just sort of walks off like whatever, and she's in tears. So it's this nice little story within a story.
And it's just a couple of seconds.
It is, but we're just watching William obviously just sort of slog through life for the next 6 months, which is apparently what he does. And it's a nice way to get through it without having to dwell on it. And of course we get the great song and a great visual. But yeah, just like you said, she talks about having a history of boyfriends that treat her badly. And then Spike at one point, William comes down for breakfast and Spike is standing there in a wetsuit. and to be fair, it's the top half of the wetsuit. Yeah. He's like, his legs are showing. I forget what he was wearing on the bottoms, but William looks at him and is like, why are you wearing that? And he's like, well, I ran out of clean clothes and I was rooting around through your closet. I found this and I thought it looked pretty cool. And we never see him make any art. I don't know if he actually does, but he certainly plays the part very well.
Yeah, honestly, if she hadn't said he was an artist, it wouldn't even occur to me. I just know he's not in the apartment all day, so he obviously goes somewhere.
Like this one scene early on where he comes out and he goes, there's something off about this yogurt. And William goes, yes, well, it's mayonnaise. And then
he just keeps eating it. Yikes.
Spike is a great part of this film. He's really funny. He's really throws you off balance and doesn't take over the movie, which is very important.
Yeah, but he also is a voice of truth. Because toward the end, when there is this heartbreaking scene, there are a number. I got to say, there's this whole, boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl. There are so many boy loses girl and girl loses boy in this movie. It's whiplash.
Yeah.
But toward the end, when Anna has come to the bookstore and basically delivered that famous line, "I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy asking him to love her," and he's talking to his friends, saying, it was probably for the best, because he says no, because he's afraid, because she hurt him so badly the last time. Twice. And his friends
the part where she gave him a Chagall.
Yes, she gave him an actual, honest-to-God, genuine Chagall painting. Holy crap. Which was probably worth more than the building he lived in.
Oh, yeah.
And he's saying, "I made the right decision, didn't I?" And all of his other friends are like, oh, yeah. And he mentions it to Spike, and Spike just looks at him and says, "You daft," and I won't say it, but he says, "No," basically. "You were an idiot." And he's the only one. And he's the one who... Then William goes, "Oh, my God, what have I done?" That is one of his great moments. And when they are driving hellbent for leather over to the Ritz to try to catch up with her, and they're blocked by traffic, and without a thought, Spike leaps out of the car, runs into the middle of the intersection, and starts stopping the cars with his body. It's like he doesn't even think. He throws himself, in effect, on the grenade for his friend, and I think that's why Spike is a redeemable and a likable character.
Yeah. Speaking of which, there's a bunch of friends, and they're almost a little subplot of their own, and they're all really cool characters that we meet very briefly. But I can totally see these people being friends, and they all have something to them which makes them kind of interesting. So Bernie, who is apparently the worst stockbroker in London, he's Lord Grantham.
That's right. Sorry. Yes.
Yep. So he doesn't even recognize Anna Scott. He says hello to her. He starts talking to her. It's like, "Oh, so what do you do?" "Oh, I'm an actress." "Oh, well, good for you. So, I know so many. It's a tough business. So many of my friends, they're all waitressing and stuff. And so what kind of acting do you do?"
Yes, I've been films.
And she's looking at him because everybody else has recognized her, and he just does not get it.
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh, well, good for you. So what did you make in your last film?" And she's like,
$15 million.
He's like, well,
that's good,
well
isn't
done.
That whole evening is so cool. All of the characters. I loved Max, not just because of his awesome name, but also Tim McInerney,
right?
Because he is the one who recovers the fastest from realizing who Anna is. Because he turns to her six ass and goes, "Hello, have a drink." Boom!
Yeah.
He gets it. He recognizes her, and he pulls himself out of it. Whereas Honey starts falling, goes all fangirl over her.
Yeah.
And even is Bella, Max's what?
Yes.
Yeah, Bella. Even she's like, "Oh, what the hell is going on here?" The other thing,
because of course William didn't tell them ahead of time who he was bringing to dinner.
No, I also I have to admit, just on a certain level, it turns out Bella and Edward, or not Edward, I'm thinking, wrong movie.
I will hurt
so
you
they were
for that.
sparkling together. Bella and William they had together. They went out for a while, but there was no chemistry. And she ended up with Max. Now, Tim McInerney is many things, but he is not, shall we say, a heartthrob. He is skinny, gawky, and I love and Bella is gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And I love the fact that she tossed over Hugh friggin' Grant for gawky Tim McInerney's character. I just really like that. And the thing is, you buy their relationship completely. That you can just tell the two of them are over the moon about each other.
Yeah.
And to me,
that's really important because we see, and in fact, they comment on the fact that these two really love. So Bella's in a wheelchair. She had an accident a year and a half before where she broke her legs, and she's now paralyzed for life. And without thinking twice, he carries her up to the stairs every night. It's like, "We're not moving. We love this house. I will carry her up the stairs. That's just what I'll do." And then later on, when it's time for them to do this car chase thing, they're all in the car, and he's driving. He's like, "Where's Bella?" She's like, "Oh, she's not coming." He says, "The hell with that."
Yeah, she's out there waving, "Go." And he's like, "Hell with that." Without a thought, gets out, make sure she gets in the car.
Yep. She's coming. It's like those two, it's a tiny role. Like they're on screen for a total of 10 minutes. And they're such a nice couple. You know, like, I want to meet them. I bet he cooks terribly, but we can overlook that.
And it's so, there's this really moving scene at the dinner table during the birthday party for Honey, where they're going around, there's one brownie left, and they're going around the table saying, who is as they say, the saddest act here.
Right.
And Bella talks about her life and how, you know, she's a paraplegic and they realize they can't have children.
Yeah.
Max does not. Max is the one at the table who doesn't talk about what a sad act it is, and it's not because he doesn't want to, it's because her life is his life. Her sadness is his sadness. You can just tell.
Yeah.
He doesn't need his own story.
And they are just absolutely wonderful. And I don't know anything about those two actors. And yeah, he went on to play Lord Grantham. And if I looked her up, I'm sure she played tons of things too. But whatever chemistry those two have, it's quite honestly, it's a tiny touch better than that of Julia Roberts and Hugh Grant, which I'm not saying that they don't have chemistry, because we're going to get to that question in a sec. But those two together are so just lovely.
Yep.
They really are.
They are the kind of couple you want to be or you want to know.
Yeah. But that whole scene, the whole dinner party scene, the birthday party scene, and that specifically, they go around the room and talk to people, and they think, you know, Bella's going to win easily, because it's like, well, you know, we don't want to compete with the paraplegic. And then she's reaching for the brownie, and Anna's like, what about me? And they're all like, really? The movie star? She's like, well, and she goes in through what is honestly, it's again, when I was talking about how fame is sort of a central point of this film. It's like, I've been on a diet for 10 years. So basically, I've been hungry for 10 years.
Yep.
I can't do anything without the newspapers making a big deal out of it. My personal life is everybody else's news. They will, in a few years, my looks will go and they will find out I can't act. And then what am I going to do? I will basically have run out of career and I'll be in my mid-30s, which, as Julie Roberts has proven, is in fact not the case. But it's also interesting because it's a very thin line between how much of this is Julia Roberts and how much of this is the character she's playing. Because I'm willing to bet that some of the stuff that she is talking about, she talks about the fact that she's had 2 very painful operations to get her to look the way she has. Might be true.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But all of this is for the pursuit of fame, right?
Yep.
And one of the big, what's the word I want? The catching points between Anna Scott and William Thacker, which is a perfectly wonderful British name, is that their 2 worlds couldn't be more different. He lives in this shabby little store. He has a nice group of friends. You know, he's got some support, but he had a wife who left him for somebody who looked like Harrison Ford. And his prospects are not good. You know, his nickname of Flopsy is actually kind of fitting. Well, he says it's the hair.
The hair, yeah.
It's either Floppy or Flopsy, because they say Floppy at the dinner table, and then she calls him Flopsy later, but whatever.
And as he puts it, I love his comment when she wants to know if he wants to go out. He says, "Oh yes, the only thing waiting for me at home is a masturbating Welshman."
Sadly, factually accurate. And it does come to a point, like actually the first time they go out, on the way home, he takes her back to the Ritz. By the way, that's the real Ritz. They did actually film inside the Ritz. So those of us who will never actually stay at the Ritz, which is probably, any of us listening right now.
Or recording. Yeah.
Yeah, they had to do it like between 2 and 4 in the morning, but that's the actual Ritz. He gets her back, and lo and behold, that's when Alec Baldwin shows up, a.k.a. Jeff King.
Oh, God, that is such a painful sequence.
And Alec plays it perfectly.
Oh, he does. You hate him immediately.
Yeah. And it's obvious that he thinks he's being nice. Because what happens is William goes up to her door and knocks, and she's like, yeah, you should go. Because it turns out her boyfriend showed up. And then he's going to go, but the boyfriend pops out of the bathroom.
And she says, who's this? He said, oh, it's room service. And he begins treating him like a waiter.
Right. And he's like doing the very loud, smiley, you can do this for me American thing, and handing him what I'm guessing is like a 10-pound note or whatever to whisk away the dishes in the trash. But he's just so, like, he's putting class right into everything he says. He's trying to be nice, but he's doing it in a way that shows that he thinks he's better than the help.
Yeah.
So yeah, Alec Baldwin, again, he's on screen 2 minutes.
Maybe. And also, of course, he says, to Anna, when she's trying to decide what to order, he says, well, don't get anything too much. I don't want to be that famous actor with the fat girlfriend.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I hope they push him out a window.
Yeah. And again, this is part of the fame thing. Sadly, that's probably exactly how some of those relationships go.
Probably.
Right? Because the guy can do whatever they want. we go so often back to Patton Oswalt, but good old Brian Dennehy. Yeah. Character actors! Who cares how we look? And it's like every time those two get a moment where they can just be themselves, that her world and his world clash.
Oh, they do. That one of the most painful sequences to me is in the early part when she calls him and he finally gets the message from Spike that she's called to get together with him again, or actually for the first time, an actual date.
Yeah.
And he shows up, and it's in the middle. She's doing a press junket for her latest movie.
Right.
And the only way he can get in is if he pretends to be a reporter and he just sees a magazine, Horse and Hound. And he's there to interview her, and then they make him interview everyone else in the movie. He has never seen the movie. He doesn't know who any of these people are, and he's so bad at it. It's absolutely believable.
Yeah. I also love the fact that at the he's walked up to the room with another guy who it turns out is another reporter, and he's wondering, why is this guy coming with me? Because it turns out she asked him up to the room and forgot she had to do this whole press thing. So he walks in with another reporter, and he's got a thing of flowers, and the other reporter remarks, "Oh, you brought her flowers?" And Hugh Grant, who is, to be fair, although halting, he is quick on his feet, says, "Oh, no, these are from my grandmother. She's in the hospital up the street." And when he's leaving, thinking he's finally done with this horrible experience of interviewing people he doesn't know about something he's never seen, says, "Oh, she took your flowers." And he has to go, "Oh, yeah, bitch." And it's so obvious that saying that word was such an effort for William.
Yep.
Because he doesn't say words like that. And then he gets called, one of the people calls him back, oh, Mr. Thacker. He just goes, "Oh, please, not another one." And he actually gets to go back in and actually talk to her, which is very nice. But the two worlds couldn't be more at odds. And I can see the pain in the way it's depicted, because when they just are themselves, when they're just two people, they really like each other. Mm-hmm. And especially that scene we were talking about earlier where they're in bed together the morning after what we guess is, the morning after. She just sits there and starts talking. What is it with women's breasts? I don't get it. What is the fascination? I don't understand. And he says, no idea. Let me check. And he goes over and he looks under the blanket and he sits back down and goes, "Nope, haven't a clue." But the fact that he did that he felt comfortable enough with her to just go ahead and, even though, yes, they've had sex, but of course it was in the dark and, I don't know, with a flashlight and whatever.
However the English do it, yes.
Tea and crumpets. Where's that strumpet? I never. The fact that he goes and just says, "Well, I'll have a look," and does,
and the way she just cracks up, she thinks he's.
She does,
and he also. The other thing I have to say about him is he can be very clever and very witty. When she's saying, every other person has breasts, he goes, "Well, not more than that, really. I mean, Meatloaf's got quite a nice pair." And he does it absolutely deadpan.
Yes. And to me, that, like, one of those moments there is when we're actually seeing William. All of his defenses are down. Most of his Britishness is down. No offense to our British listeners, but you tend to be very polite and very nice people.
Yeah, weirdos.
Yeah, you should be rude to obnoxious like us.
Going around having manners. Jeez.
But we actually, I think, get to see him. And I don't think he gets to do that very often, because he always feels like, even in front of Spike, he has to be sort of, all right, I know he's an idiot, so I have to be nice to him. I can't just yell at him like I'd like to. So right. So what happened to, and Spike's like, "No idea."
Although he does, when he's realized that Spike has waited 2 days to give him the message from Anna, he is describing Spike, and Spike's sitting right there, guys. Picture the stupidest person you can imagine.
Are you
now
doing that?
Double it.
Yes, I think I can picture
And Spike could not care less. He could not.
Nope.
Totally not offended.
And the thing is he's waiting for there's a code word. So whenever she stays at a hotel, she uses an assumed name. And she's left it with Spike, who he says, yeah, she gave me this name, Anna, and then later she gave me this totally different name. What was it? No idea. He can't remember it. And after he calls Spike an idiot, he just goes, Troy Flintstone. and it turns out...
Yep, that's the name she used.
Yeah.
God, it's one of the most touching lines. Everyone always talks about the I'm just a girl standing in front of a boy, but the one that just goes right through into the heart for me is when the paparazzi have discovered them, and she's just furious. She's just freaking out. She feels betrayed. And William doesn't get it because it's not his world. He doesn't understand what it means to have bad publicity and how that actually translates into direct economic consequences. And she says at one point, when she's about to, she says, I will regret this forever, which is just a dagger. And he just says, well, I will feel the exact opposite if it's all the same to you. It's like, oh!
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's about probably when the clash is its greatest, is when so what happens is she's come to stay with William. Spike has gone down the pub and said something stupid, because that's what Spike does, and mentioned that, Anna Scott's staying at our house. The next morning, William goes out to get the newspaper wearing a t-shirt and his boxer shorts, and the porch is flooded with paparazzi and news reporters. And he's stunned. He is visibly just like, I have no idea what's going on. And he shuts the door. And then she comes down and she's like, oh, what's going on? And she goes to the door and he's like, I wouldn't do that if I were you. But because he can't process what's happened, he doesn't actually reach out and go, no, for the love of all the gods, don't open the door. Yeah. And she's wearing his shirt and nothing else. Mm-hmm. And then, of course,
Spike goes out and not in his underwear and starts posing for them. And he thinks this is hilarious. He thinks it's the great thing, the best thing ever.
Nice taut buttocks.
Yeah, Spike is delighted with how he looks, and he's not perhaps unearned, but it really is. And the backstory to that is she's hiding out because someone just published a series of old nude pictures she did when she was just starting out and had no money, which happens with a lot of beginning actors or models. Is they pose nude because they need the money. And
it was worse than that. Well, it turns out that somebody was filming
her.
And
they end up sort of recutting it so it looks like a porno.
Right. And she's like, I can't live past this. I'll never get past this. Which, as it turns out, she gets past it rather quickly.
Yeah,
but
fine. She's totally ashamed. And this feels like another betrayal. And it's more than she can take. And, she basically leaves him. And
I actually like his perspective, because his perspective is actually correct. Okay, it's her career and etc., but it's like, look, there's going to be another scandal from somebody else in a week, and this will be forgotten. She's like, every time I do anything, they're going to bring this up. And it's like, to some extent, but quite honestly, what would you... His whole point is, life is worth a whole lot more than this. Life means a lot more than this, and eventually we get to see some of this. It's like, so what? Let them have their moment. We still had a really nice time. You came to visit me, and it was wonderful. And she just decides the whole thing was the worst thing that ever happened. Yeah. So, that's the stab to the heart. And there's a number of stab to the heart moments in this film, both good and bad. On the way home from the birthday party, she's walking her back to the Ritz, and they go by this little gated park, this little garden, and she's like, oh, we should go. And he's like, well, you can't, you have to be one of the people who lives near here. And she's like, do you always follow these rules? And he's like, no, not at all.
They scale the fence. She much more easily than him. He almost kills himself.
He falls off the fence and he goes, whoopsie-daisy. And she's like, what did you say? Nothing at all. Did you just said whoopsie-daisy? No, because of course nobody in 100 years has said whoopsie-daisy. And he tries again and says the same thing.
Like it, only says that as little girls with golden ringlets.
But they go in, and it's this lovely little gated community for rich white people. I mean, well, let's face it.
Yes.
And they find this bench, and this bench has been given by this man in memory of his wife. And it said, this is for so-and-so from her so-and-so who always sat next to him. And it's just the sweetest thing. And this will be important because at the end of the film, they're seen sitting on that bench together. And the idea, because of that bench is a symbol that they found each other, they've accepted each other, and they too will have a nice life together.
Well, even when she sits on the bench and he doesn't know what to do, he's sort of just pacing, and she says to him, "Come sit by me."
Yeah.
It's just such a sweet moment.
It is. It's funny, you get all these sweet moments and then these horrible interruptions by Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I don't think it goes particularly deep. I should say, it doesn't go particularly deeply, to use the adverb, into the actual life of fame, but it touches on it enough that it's like the next time I see a famous person, I'm probably just going to leave them alone because, they don't need this. And speaking of, one of my talking points, Max, have you met anyone famous in similar circumstances?
You mean and ended up in bed with them? Sure,
no,
lots of them. Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Mr. Rogers.
I hate to kiss and tell.
Bill Nye the Science Guy.
Brian Dennehy.
No, but have you ever met a famous person just like by chance?
Yeah, sure. Couple times. I don't know. I can't say I met anyone like hugely famous. I met Stephen King when I worked in a bookstore.
I forgot about him.
And
because I met him too.
I met the comedian A. Whitney Brown at a comedy club. Who? Yeah,
fancy that.
Huh? Yeah,
fancy that in a comedy club.
Yeah, funny that. Yeah, I can't really. That's really not running into them in a strange place because, he was performing that night, but we were out front together, and for some reason I have never understood. He walks over, looks at me, goes, "Hey, you." Like, yeah, you a writer? Like, I've written stuff. And goes, no, and he just storms off. Like, what just? I was with a friend of mine named Doug, and we look at each other going, "What just happened?"
Apparently, he needed a punchline.
And I was like, "Okay, maybe he was looking for like one of his writers, like his joke writers or something." And but he didn't know what he looked like. Did they think I was like a writer for hire who wandered in off the street? I don't know. It was a confusing moment.
Yeah.
How about you? I mean, you met a ton of people when you worked in the comic book store.
Well, most of the famous people I know are comics-related people, but 3 Hollywood people did, in fact, for reasons pretty much unknown to me, walk into the comic store that I worked at. The first one that I remember chronologically, I believe, was Carrie Fisher. And she walked in. I did not know who she was because she walked in, so she walked past me. I was sort of more or less on parallel with the door. So I saw the back of her head. She walked down one aisle, cut over to the next aisle, walked towards me up the middle of the next aisle, stopped, looked very confused, like, why am I here? And then left.
Oh, okay.
The second one that I remember meeting, and I would never have recognized this person if they had not paid for what they were buying with their American Express card, was Christopher Lambert, best known as Duncan MacLeod.
Of the Clan MacLeod.
Of the Clan MacLeod from Highlander.
Yeah.
He actually was buying a Tintin book because at that point they were going to make a live-action Tintin movie, and for whatever reason he was in Cambridge, Massachusetts buying a Tintin book.
Sure.
Quite honestly, I think his hair was either just pre-Greystoke or just post because it was very long and curly, and he was wearing very thick glasses, and I was like, whatever, and he hands me his card. It's like, oh, Christopher Lambert. And I looked up, it's like, I squinted, and it's like, oh, yeah. And the third one, whom I actually spoke to and helped, and whom you very much call Sir, was Tommy Lee Jones.
Oh.
And he was filming Blown Away at the time in Boston. So this leads to my question. One of my questions, which we asked last week, was usually these rom-coms have a point where the two people meet, and it's supposed to be unlikely that they would meet. So
the meet cute,
if you must.
Yeah.
Do you buy the circumstance?
I guess so. First off, these two have 2 meet cutes, which I think is a little much. One is just when she comes into the bookstore, and the other is when he bumps into her and spills orange juice on her.
Right.
Both of those are quite believable. Well, I don't know why she came into the travel bookstore unless she was just looking for some place to get out of the crowd. But I think they're reasonable. The other odd thing, I got to say, a lot of the time when you see a famous person on the street, you do not recognize them.
No.
Because they're not wearing the makeup, they're not in character. And I am told I have walked right by famous people, like even in the bookstore, and had no clue who they were.
I take it back, though. With Stephen King, I knew immediately who it was.
Well, he's pretty distinctive, yeah.
Yeah, he was wearing his Red Sox cap, but it was still Stephen King.
Yeah, but so I buy the meet cute. I think that it works okay with them because it doesn't feel contrived. The only surprising part is that they run into each other again, a second time, so quickly, while he's carrying orange juice. I
didn't really have a problem with that. We knew she was in the neighborhood. Yeah. But of course, you're sitting there going, oh, well, what person ever has a Hollywood star walk into their store? Probably a lot of people.
A lot of people do. Hollywood people go shopping. It's a funny thing. Sometimes they really don't want to be noticed. But some of them have this weird... I've talked to people who have seen a lot more famous people than I have, either because of where they work or what they do. They say a lot of them have this weird vibe of, oh, God, please don't notice that it's me. Respect my privacy. Me, the famous person. So there's some of them have a kind of weird love-hate thing with the recognition, because let's face it, if you want to be a movie star, if you become a movie star, you must want that recognition on some level. You may not want it all the time.
Right.
But some part of you must need it, because otherwise why would you put up with the complete and utter loss of privacy?
Yeah. I'll have to say, too, that if Julia Roberts wants to not be recognized, she's doing a terrible job at it.
Yeah, it's like...
she puts on sunglasses.
You'd be surprised. The standard Hollywood disguise, apparently, is a baseball cap and put your hair in a ponytail if you're a woman. And sunglasses. Some guys. And it seems to work.
Yeah. Huh.
But,
So that's one of the two big questions in this one. We don't have to worry about the times. It's the 90s. Yeah. It's not that long ago, so there's nothing really anachronistic we have to worry about. So the film still holds up in that respect. The other big question I have is chemistry. Do you think these two have chemistry?
Yeah, I do. I think the chemistry works. I kind of agree with you. I think Tim McInerney and the one who played Bella have more chemistry.
Yeah.
But I think they do, and I think it builds, because initially... you're like, wow, I don't know if these two work. Because first, if nothing else, she is extremely American and he is extremely English. I mean, let's face it. If you dug up the mold of Englishman, it would look exactly, it's like, wow, this is from 1066 or something. Oh, that's funny. It looks just like Hugh Grant.
Yeah. Might be a little blonder. But might
be a little blonder, but same big blue eyes. Yeah, and I'm sure it was apologizing for something, but...
I would say that you get more... This is sort of weird because it sort of doesn't make sense, but I think that for most of the film, you get more of the chemistry from him than you do from her. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing, because, of course, she's a lot harder for trusting than he is. He's had one bad love life experience. As far as we can tell, he's had one experience. So I can understand that part, but she can't trust anybody because, as it turns out, they might go down the pub and, let things out. But the chemistry is, I would say, more weighted heavily on his character through the first half of the film. But I agree. I think they have chemistry, especially towards the end. It's when she comes back, there's that moment, and it's a moment, and I'm sure people are going to be divided about the "I'm just a girl" line. Yeah. That thing goes right through my heart. I'm sorry. It's a lovely line. She's wearing a very demure, very simple blue sweater and skirt. It looks to me like she's tried to scrub as much of Hollywood off her as she can.
She's wearing very little makeup.
Yep. She's trying to appear as herself. I think that's one of the symbols there is she's showing, no, I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm talking about me. This is just me. And she does this wonderful speech about how she wants to try and have him take her back. And he's just like, I don't think I could survive it.
Yeah, she said, I don't, because he's sure she'll leave him again.
Well, he's like, I don't think my heart could take, that whatever happens with Hollywood. And her facial expression stays porcelain, but you can still feel the cracks behind it.
You can see it just from her eyes. It's actually really remarkable. People have complained about Julia Roberts that she's, it's just because the way she looks or because she's tall or what have you. It's like, no, the woman can act.
Yeah. And you can see that that's not what she was expecting or at all what she wanted to hear, but she also has to accept it. It's like, I can't argue with that.
Yeah.
But she sort of tries, well, do you think about it this way? Because none of that's really real. And he's like, yeah, I don't think I can. And she leaves. And it's, that's another one of those moments. So yeah, the chemistry, it's interesting because it's not as instant as it might have been in, say, It Happened One Night. Or I wouldn't say it was instant and It Happened One Night, but it didn't happen as quickly and it wasn't as even, but I would say it's there.
Yeah, and I do love the reconciliation scene is actually very nicely handled. It's a press conference again, only this is a large scale, and he again is introducing himself as from Horse and Hound, which I love what this line, yes, you are Horse and Hound's favorite actress. Well, you and Black Beauty, it's a tie.
Yeah, and just like Bumpy. Bumpy's very big in Horse and Hound.
Yeah. But when he's basically, and she gets what he's doing. He is abasing himself. He is apologizing in front of this whole room, although in the third person because he's not admitting who he is yet to the crowd.
But as a bunch of reporters, they figure it out.
Yeah, they figure it out pretty quick. And it's like, would you consider giving him another chance? And she goes, yes, I would. And they fall into each other's arms. They're nowhere near each other. And it's just the way they're grinning at each other across the room that is just as intimate and just as satisfying.
Well, you can see in his eyes that he has totally blanked out the rest of the room.
Yeah.
The only thing he sees is her, and that's it. And there's a nice little sort of ending montage. We see him going to one of her premieres as Mr. Julia Roberts, and he looks very awkward, even though it's Hugh Grant getting out of in a tuxedo, getting out of a limousine at a red carpet, which is something Hugh Grant does very well. He looks awkward and like, I have no idea what I'm supposed to do. We see their wedding, which is very nice. We get to see the mother. And then the parting scene is them sitting on that bench. And he is reading a book, and she's got her head in his lap, and you can tell that she's pregnant. And it's just nice.
Yeah,
it's nice.
It's nice.
So what else is nice, Max, is the fact that we've come to the end of our episode, and we have to discuss whether we think the whole movie is nice. Because it's got parts, but sometimes those parts, as nice as they are, don't add up to a satisfying conclusion. So if we take a moment to reflect. The Roundup. Max!
Present.
Now, you'd seen this before, right? I know you didn't see it when it came out, but you'd seen it before.
No, I had.
Had you seen it often, or have you just seen it once?
I've seen it a couple of times.
And what is your verdict?
I think it holds together very well, and I think it holds up very well. It's just very sweet. And the thing I really like about this, and again, taking nothing away from It Happened One Night, this love story doesn't happen over 4 nights.
No.
This is over like almost the course of a year. Even if some of it is kind of sped up, it's not as, hi, hello, I love you, won't you tell me your name sort of thing. Thank you, Mr. Morrison. But I really like the way it builds. I like the fact that it's not easy and that they're dealing with some real issues, like how can he fit into her world? It's pretty clear because his world she's very comfortable in.
Except for Spike.
But no one could be comfortable with Spike.
No. Poor Spike, I wonder what happens to him. I guess he marries Honey and they move into whatever her apartment is because,
Yeah. What about you? How is it for you? Does it hold together?
I adore this film. I'm pretty sure that the reason I saw it is I was visiting my mother, and she loved this film. In fact, I think I have her copy. I could be wrong. I don't usually... I'm a very masculine, manly man. I tamed the seas myself, and I have tattoos you wouldn't believe, which, of course, these days doesn't mean a damn thing.
True.
This film melts me. It really does. It's very sweet. I'm sure if you're not a rom-com person, it's not going to change your mind. It is exceedingly white.
It is very, very white.
And, of course, the film is basically like, even a beautiful young white girl and a beautiful young white boy can find love. I know you wouldn't think it's possible, but it's true. I like them together. The fairy tale aspect of, what if you could fall in love with a movie star? Yeah, it works on me fine. Just fine. I actually like the fact that it's really the Julia Roberts character is the more in control of things in general, and that the guy is the one who's awkward about things. It's a nice change. I really just don't have any problems with this film. I think it's fun. I think it's sweet. There are certain times I'm just in the mood to see it. So there you go.
And it is funny. There are parts that are genuinely laugh out loud funny. And
you like all of the ancillary characters.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're a great group of friends. They're all interesting. They're all funny in their own ways. They're all sweet in their own ways. Spike's freaking hilarious. Bella and Belly and Max are a great couple. Honey is a nice character. She's funny.
The girls that William is set up with, like Tessa, and my favorite is the Fruitarian.
And the sad thing is, when this film came out, the idea of the Fruitarian was probably considered ludicrous. And now...
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it's a thing.
It is a thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And, so, yes, we believe that you can only eat fruit and that is fallen from the tree.
And because fruits and vegetables have feelings. And
yes. So these characters have been murdered, yes.
I got to give props to that actress because she delivers that line so seriously and so like, yes, I absolutely believe this. These carrots were murdered.
Yeah. But getting away from the murder of carrots, what are we going to watch next week?
Well, before we get to that, let's get to a little business, which we are now moving to the end of the show.
We are, if we remember to do it.
Yep, if we do. If you enjoyed this episode, you want to hear others, you have a complete back catalog of them at our website, maxmikemovies.com. You can also listen to us and find our back episodes on the podcast app of your choice. Google, Apple, iHeartRadio. We're on Spotify under podcasts. You can email us at maxmikemovies.com. Yes, so some of our incredibly famous listeners, those of you who deal with the troubles of fame, do you think this is an accurate portrayal of that? I know, because I know you're out there. I tell myself that every night as I go to sleep. And, of course, you can find us on the socially mediated things on Facebook or Twitter as Max Mike Movies. And yes, next week, we're going back in time.
We are not watching Back to the Future.
No, we're not. That's not really a romantic comedy. We're going to one of the classic romantic comedy duos, Tracy and Hepburn.
Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla?
No, Tracy and Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn and Tracy Ullman.
I don't think so.
Tracy
the gorilla from the real Ghostbusters?
Yes, that's it. No. Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, who did a whole series of these things. And I'm going to one of my favorites, which is Pat and Mike.
Norm and the Loons.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.
Oh, me? What do I think? Oh, well. Oh, I see. What I think has happened is that once again the call has killed itself and Max is gone. Are you there?